Hello, welcome to another exciting episode of Peak vs. Society. My guest today is a ferocious imagination advocate, clinical hypnotherapist, AI advocate. She speaks on themes associated with subconscious self-improvement and personal growth. She also the host of the Mind Power Meets Mystic podcast, the one, the only Michelle Walters. Michelle, how you doing? I know I messed up that first one, didn't I?
Nah, you did great. You did great. I'm doing very, very well. Thank you, Pete.
So, Michelle, why don't you tell everybody a little more about yourself?
So I am a California native. I've spent most of my life here, although as I just shared, I did spend a little time living in Dallas. I've traveled some, but for the most part, I'm a California girl.
Yeah.
I had a career in digital marketing for over 20 years and loved that,
Interesting.
although it was up and down and up and down. And what I loved about it was that it was creative and it was persuasive and it was getting into how people think. And then over the course of my life, I have had not one, but two partner losses. My husband died in 2011,
Oh.
and then my dream partner died in 2021. And one of the people who helped me, particularly through my husband's passing, was a woman named Karen, who was from, of all places, Glen Rose.
That's so funny.
Karen was a psychic and a hypnotherapist, although I didn't really think of our work as hypnotherapy, but it kind of was. And then somewhere along the way, about 2019 or so, I read a book called The Hypnotist Love Story. And it was all about this hypnotherapist who lived in Sydney, and she had these adventures and helped people. And I was like, I want to do that.
You know what I'm saying,
And
right? Yeah.
so I trained, and when a couple of years later, after my partner had passed and like all, life had changed, the pandemic had happened, all this stuff going on, I was like, I'm going to open my doors to be a hypnotherapist. And that's what I did. And so in early 2022, I rented an office. I set myself up on Zoom for online clients and started seeing people for a wide variety of issues. Because when people go to see a hypnotherapist, they've usually gone to try and solve their problems several other ways,
All right.
and have now decided that maybe this is in their head and that somebody could help them to process the trauma, find new behaviors, go back in their memory and find an explanation, somehow come up with some way of getting them out of the rut they are in. And I love my work. Since then, it's evolved. I have a podcast, as you mentioned. I've got 2 books. And most recently this year, I invented an app.
Well, that's awesome. What's your app about?
My app is a hypnotherapy app. What I realized is that there's kind of a gap in the market, right? There are people who need to see hypnotherapists because they need some one-on-one love. They need some guidance. They need getting out of a deep hole. They need individualized care. And then there's a lot of other people who want to use hypnotherapy for support and kind of help process a lot of thinking, but they don't really, they're not at the need, the budget, the whatever to see a hypnotherapist individually. And for them, they can get lots of recordings. I've been selling recordings on Etsy for years. I record for somebody else's app. Like there's lots of recordings, but all of those recordings are made. They're pre-recorded.
Yeah.
They're not for Pete. They're not for Jane. They're not for Sue. And now in today's world, we can create one that is for Jane or Pete or Sue. And so my app is called MakeMyHypno.com. It's not really an app. It's really a website. You go to a website to get it. But what you do when you get there is you say, I want a recording made for me. I want a recording that says it's for getting over anxiety. And my favorite place is an ocean beach with lots of wildlife, or my favorite place is a windswept mountain. Like if you
Okay.
look where
I
you
like that
want
though. I
to
like that you're asking all those questions though to specialize it to something that fits to what they're
be.
in. I
Exactly.
think that's
And then
creative.
there's kind of a fill-in field where you can put in, help me get past my hangups about work,
Yeah.
or like you can put in, my favorite affirmation is da 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 da. And then what happens is my app uses just 4 little questions. It's really quick and easy to create a custom recording for that person that they receive in about 5 minutes, and it gets emailed to them.
Okay.
So I intentionally set it up this way because I want my purchasers to be able to listen to it on repeat, because that's part of what makes hypnosis and the subconscious change is repeat.
hmm
and people are seeing great results. So, I have people who have gotten back to the gym, people who have stopped overeating sugar, people who are sleeping better, people who are telling me they feel more connected with their self. They're crying at the results from my app, which is kind of unbelievable to me. I mean, that happens when I'm working with people individually, but not
Do you have
from
a
a
lot of imposter syndrome at
recording.
times? Like it's hard to believe how successful it's becoming, like just from people listening to something you're doing is making that big of a change?
Well, it's hard to measure because it's all individual,
Yeah.
right? And it is a little bit kind of what you make of it.
Yeah.
So the clients, some clients have told me the next day something changed. And some clients have told me I kept listening to it for a couple of weeks and then the change happened. I talked to someone this week and she was like, "Well, I got my app, or my recording." She's like, "But I didn't see any results." And I said, "Well, how many times did you listen to it?" She said, "2." Said, "You might need more."
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it takes a little bit more to propel a change. It's a small lever in the fight for making people feel better and less anxious, but it is one thing that I'm proud of that I've been able to bring to the real world to help people.
Michelle, I have to say, first off, I like the fact that you're not trying to sell them this quick, rich scheme type thing. You're not like, oh, well, it'll fix it in 5 minutes. Listen, you may have to listen to it for a little bit. Some people, everybody's different, just like you said. And I love that when you said that because it's like, I meet so many people doing this show. There's a few that I can remember that were like, well, I can fix it in 2 days. I'm like, I don't think you can though. Like it's like I just can't buy into that. It's like I deal with anxiety every day, and like even I had to work at it. My anxiety's bad some days, but I have my own little tricks I use. Like I do one thing I do with mine is like to keep my mind busy. I'm a huge movie buff, so like I do this funny thing where I recast my friends in different roles. So my friends are laughing at me as I pick out their roles of things. So my good friend Vanessa. She runs a podcast with Manny 2.0. She's like, Pete, I'm starting to do the same thing now. I'm recasting people, and it's just fun because it keeps my mind busy. So I'm not getting able to attach anything. So, for my anxiety, mine catches onto something and it just takes off. Like it starts spinning and it goes faster and faster, and then it'll start recreating itself into something else, and I love it though, that you're not telling people, hey, listen, this is a guarantee going to work right out the bat. Just you may have to give it a little time, and that's great though, because that means that's more authentic. That's more genuine too. First off, because you're not trying to sell that quick reach thing, or some people start calling it snake oil. But I feel like your digital marketing experience helps for you to market it better because you already understand the insides out of a lot of this stuff too.
Yeah, well, I don't know that very many other hypnotherapists would have been game to build an app.
Mm.
I have met a couple, maybe, who would have, but for the most part, that's a very different
Yeah,
world,
that's a tough task for a
And
lot of people.
it's tough, but it's completely different today. I mean, I was trying to remember what was the first app I worked on, and I'm not sure it was the first app I worked on, but it was a
Yeah.
long time ago. It was probably in the early 2000s. I did marketing for Clorox, and we had this
Okay.
customer insight that people used to sit and hold their phones on they sat on the toilet, and we were
Yeah.
working on toilet bowl cleaner. And so we created this like Tetris game where it had like toilet bowl cleaner things on it. It was pretty hysterical. And
I love it. That's
I don't
great.
know that it sold any toilet bowl cleaner, but it did get the brand manager who funded it a lot of good talk
Well, I
in the
mean,
building,
it's all
right?
about product placement too. You're like people are thinking of it though. It's even if you're not really selling it right away, you're still putting that product in their eyes. So thinking Clorox,
Exactly.
something,
There's
yeah.
something about you wanna put something in someone's mind, and
Hmm.
sometimes it needs a little time to germinate, to
That's
blossom,
why think about like all the successful advertisements, like the Budweiser's frogs and the Super Bowl commercials were so memorable because they were just like it was hilarious. Nobody thought about the product Budweiser, but you remember the frogs when you see it. So literally, you're linking it all together. So it's I have a little bit of a marketing background. I did I did graphic designing, so I was working with a guy who had done like advertisement agencies for the longest time. So he was giving us an insight of like different things people would look at, like what color people see first and all these other things. And he's like, a lot of it is just, you start getting them to remember things like something they grasp onto. So when they see it, they're thinking your brand. They may not be thinking your brand right away, but as soon as they see that, it clicks with them for whatever reason they're drawn to it, kind of thing like that too, and like red, it's like the first color you see. Why do you think stop signs are red? Because that's the first thing you see. You know what I mean? Like all these other interesting things are like you don't think about, but these people took all this time to basically do it for you. All the flashy designs, all the flashy ad commercials, like what is it? State Farm one that always stuck with me was the guy with Aaron Rodgers with the dude with the cheese hat. He was like, discount double check. He's like, hey, Rodgers. And he just kept, like you just start clicking in your head. And it was another one I had a bunch of friends I played online with. You know, we're in this chat group, and it was the fish squish patty and a bun thing. I got all of them saying because it was just stuck in my head on repeat. You know, so they all started saying it. You know, so they're like, "Damn it, Pete, here we go again. You got us saying something oddball here." You know, so I'd come in with different random things that I just start telling people. You know, and then the movie thing now, like I said, now my friend she starts doing it too, but she's a big movie buff too. So like we're sitting here recasting things, so she was laughing about it hysterically. She's like, "Damn it, Pete!" I got that message. I just start dying laughing. You know, and it's because people are like, "Oh God, here we go." Because my imagination, my brain is going 24/7. Like, you know, my anxiety just keeps it going, you know, but like I said, I've been learning different ways to keep it busy. So that way it's a lot
You're
easier,
doing great,
you
Pete.
know,
This notion of casting people in a movie, I just love it. That's back to my sort of passion for things that are imaginative,
and
you
then
know?
somebody asked me what my animated character was. And I told him it'd be Batty from Ferngully, which was Robin Williams' character. And I love Robin Williams. He was a big guy, you know, like his quote where he talks about, you know, why you should be kind to everybody because you don't know what somebody's going through always stuck with me. And it still sticks with me to this day because I loved Robin Williams. And then when I start digging deep into what he dealt with, geez, that poor guy, man. I'm surprised. I don't know how he made it through most days. Like, you know, Robin went through a lot of stuff, man.
He did.
And it was horrible, but you never would have known it. He's just like me, you know. And I've told people before though, like when I was recording the show earlier the year, I was going through a horrible time, but no one ever knew, you know. So it gets easier though, you know, and it's hard at times, but you know, it's like I'm happy that it's not one of those people trying to sell me a quick risk scheme. Then I get mad because it doesn't work, you know, like Billy Mays out there trying to sell something to somebody.
Well, and things, you know, to be clear about hypnosis, hypnosis is a completely consensual event.
Hmm.
You do not get into a state of hypnosis if you notice it and don't want to be there.
Yeah,
And so if you don't think it's going to work, guess what? It
it's
doesn't
not gonna
work.
work. Yeah,
Right? So you have to buy in and you have to go along with it and you have to be open minded.
yeah,
And when those things happen, the science behind it is fascinating. The science behind it shows that three things happen when you go into a state of hypnosis. You become more open to suggestion, you become less associated, meaning that you're more imaginative, you're
yeah.
more like, you know, and then the third one is that your attention focuses, right? And for a lot of people in today's noisy world, that attention focus is really, really helpful and
Hmm.
relaxing. And so when those three things happen, certain parts of your brain dial down and you become more able to reframe, reimagine, rewire the brain in a way that leads to better outcomes.
Right.
So, yeah, I've had a number of clients, you know, I think if somebody's asked me before, what's the most common thing people come to see you for? And I would say it's anxiety in different forms,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes anxiety is very situationally specific. Like I've had many clients for driving anxiety. Okay in life, but when it comes to behind the wheel, there's a big problem, right? And then I've had other clients who came to me for sort of more general anxiety. I had one woman, she's probably one of the women I needed help the most, who came to see me. She was local. She came, I think, twice a week for a few months. Her anxiety had gotten so bad that this was a realtor. Like she
Yeah.
was a woman who was used to talking to people and
You know,
selling
that's
houses.
kind of weird though, because yeah, she talks to people, she's in front of people, she's gonna market herself, like she's being seen more than most people.
And
Yeah,
she went from being this outgoing person to couldn't leave her house, couldn't go on her walk with her girlfriends, couldn't get to the gym, couldn't do the things that she wanted to do. We needed to take a lot of time to figure out what was going on and how to help her get over the hill.
yeah,
And eventually we did. In part, I think through her faith. You know, some people are like, well, is hypnotherapy going to conflict with my belief system? No. It just builds on your belief system
yeah,
and it uses your belief system to help you heal. And that's what happened with this gal. And now she's back at work. She's selling houses. She's doing the things she wants to do and often shares about just what a massive transformation it was from this pit of despair that she had fallen into.
yeah. No, I can relate to that though. That's how my depression was last year, and it's better now. But it was like a giant black hole just getting sucked in every time. But when I came on here and the camera, you'd have no idea. And I told that to somebody in an interview, and she's like, "I never even knew." It's like exactly the point. That's how come I did it, so you didn't know. But I could relate to that though. The gym, especially. Think about it, how many people are staring at you when you're doing things. Like you look around and people are looking at you, and you know, especially when it comes to pretty girls at the gym, it's like every guys are like, because we don't know how to act right. We don't. Let's be honest here. they're coming in half with clothing on and things like that. They're just staring, and it's like, most of the time you're not. You're just in the zone. You're just off. You could be looking, but you're not even focusing on that, kind of thing. So I get that though. My anxiety though, first at the gym it was kind of like that a little bit. So then I got into those, the free weight benches where you got the little cages in front of the mirrors. At first it took me a while to work my way up to that because I'm just like, how many people are going to be watching what I'm doing and, things like that. And then I just eventually just stopped caring. I was like, whatever. At this point, I'm just going to have to get over it either way. It's like people are going to look at you regardless of what you're doing anyways. I record a podcast. If I'm worried about that, I mean, where's that's a real problem. It's like I'm on the internet. Everybody can see you. Hell, you can even start Google me now. That was funny too. And somebody told me that. Did you know you can Google yourself? I'm like, really? Like, yeah, Google yourself. Your podcast shows up on the internet. I was like, what? And when that
Yeah.
moment happened, it was just like, holy crap, and it's like, hell, even ChatGPT knows who I am. So I was like, that was shocking too. I was like, damn, all right, okay, cool. All right, making it something
You
happen
made it.
there. So speaking of
Yes.
podcasts though, Mind Power meets Mystic. What's the concept of the show and how did you start it?
So I wanted to have a podcast, and my good friend wanted to have a podcast at the same time. My good friend is my podcast partner. Her name's Cynthia Varkevisser. I met her, back, I don't know, in the maybe 2010, 2011. She was my intuition teacher.
Yeah.
She was teaching little classes at the psychic bookstore and teaching us how to read people and read tarot and feng shui and all that kind of cool stuff. And I loved
Yeah.
it, but it wasn't really the right thing for me. Hypnotherapy was the right thing for me. Anyway, she and I are good friends. We both wanted a podcast, and we were like, well, this doesn't make sense for us each to have our own podcast. It was so much easier, more fun to do it together. And
Yeah.
so we created a podcast. We initially called it It's All Connected, because that's kind of how we see the world, is it's all connected. And we thought that was a great title, except that
Okay.
it was terrible for search and nobody knew what we were talking about. So we
Well, did you know
rebranded.
you learn like the keywords and things like that too matter and all that kind of stuff too. I
Yeah,
was looking at our
exactly. And
earlier
we had done this.
conversation by the way, so I remember how we met originally because I remember you listened to the Meet a Gauche episode. That's what it was. I was trying to remember what episode you had listened to, but yeah, you know from the how it works. Like the keywords, how that stuff goes. So how, and it's like a lot of people go, well, I don't even know how to start a podcast. And it's always fun to listen to people that like it's like I didn't either, and I'm doing it. So I mean, it's possible for
We
anybody.
figured it out. I mean, at the end of the day, we figured it out. I'd had a couple of people I knew who'd started podcasts, and I was like, oh my gosh, if these people can do it, I can do it.
Right.
And I was kind of the tech person, at least to start, because that was more my background. And we put it together. We rebranded as Mind Power Meets Mystic not long after we started.
Yeah.
Me being the Mind Power and Cynthia being the Mystic. And we've produced, I don't know, 160 shows or something like that at this point. Going strong, having a wonderful time, talking to people of interest. This year's been fun. We've been talking to people and relating their jobs to different chakras.
Yeah.
So we're working our way up the chakra system. As we record this, we're on chakra 5, but it's been a lot of fun to,
That sounds interesting, honestly.
to explore that kind of thing.
What kind of jobs have you guys explored so far? Like anything in particular? Is it just kind of like you generalize the field they're in, or you guys focus on certain
No,
job titles?
so it's been interesting to me because I've been understanding the chakras better as a result. Like the first chakra is all about safety and security. So we talked to a realtor and a financial planner and a computer security person. And then the second chakra is all about sort of like expression, creativity, femininity, things like that. So we talked to another podcaster who was very creative. We talked to a women's business coach who was feminine. We talked to different kinds of people, but it's just been interesting
Oh, yeah.
to get to know the chakras while we talk to people
Yeah.
and get a better understanding for kind of who they are and their story and how did they come to do this, because we all gravitate towards certain things and it's fun to see who gravitates towards what.
Yeah, I think it's very fascinating. I think it's interesting. I'm gonna have to go listen to that now because I'm curious. Because I had a guest on the show, Shannon Curtis. She wrote a book called "No More Monsters Under the Bed," and she offered to do. She does chakra readings too, so we're gonna do one together. We were talking about doing one, recording an episode where she was reading it, and you get people to feel for it, or maybe we may not record it. I'm not sure what she decided, but I like to put a lot of things out there for people to see. Like I did a star chart reading. I had Carmen Turner come on, and we were doing that, and she did it live with me when we recorded a live episode. She was talking about it, and all the different things and how it all how it all relates. Before we even talked, she had no idea anything else about me. She just knew where I was born, what time I was born, and the day I was born. That's it. Okay. So when we got into the conversation, she started listing things off that, only people that know me really well knew a lot of these other things. And it was just shocking because it was just like, I didn't tell Carmen anything. Carmen didn't know anything about me. She only knew me from her partner, Sherry Ann Boyd, who was on the show earlier last year with me when I was in the early stages of doing the first part of Pete for Anxiety, before I rebranded the logo and everything, so she had come on and then she had mentioned Sherry's name. It's like, yeah, Sherry Ann and I worked together. She had mentioned you for a few minutes. And that was funny because the night before she was like, yeah, Sherry and I were talking about you a little bit. And I was laughing about it. It's like, oh, that's great. Here we go. What did she tell you now? And it was just interesting to me because it's like, human design is another thing we're going to explore here too. I had somebody, I got to reach out and talk to them. Chinese Zodiac was another thing. So I'd like to get into that kind of stuff too, because I'm just always fascinated about learning about these kind of things. So I definitely have to go check that out for sure.
Well, if you are curious about some great guests, we've explored all those topics and more. I'm a big advocate of Chinese astrology. We usually have astrologers on our show in January to talk about the upcoming year. We've had an Enneagram expert. We've
Ooh,
had
what's
human
that?
design. We've had,
What's Enneagram? Whoa, hold up. What is Enneagram?
oh, you got to check out Enneagram.
Okay.
Enneagram is a very old personality typing system that
Okay.
has like 9 different personality types. And then, you're one and you connect to a couple of others. And it's a nice, I think all of these are really interesting
Well,
in
they
that
are. They're
they
very interesting.
help. And I'm not saying that they're all right or wrong or whatever, but they give you an interesting framework
Mm-hmm.
to reflect on yourself and to reflect on other people. And I think that's a lot of where the value comes from, right? Is okay, if I look through it this way and I see it this, in this color
Yeah.
scheme, what does that tell me? What does that tell me about myself? What new questions does it raise? Should I be meeting a different kind of person? Should I be asking different kinds of questions?
Yeah. No, that's
It
that's what I
just
did
gives
when I
you
found
richer
out,
ways
like,
to explore the world. Yeah.
that's what I did with Met Carmen. I was looking at the similarities of a lot of things, and I started noticing a lot of the stuff she's pointing out all makes sense because it's like she said I had a lot of female friends. I have a lot of female friends. I tend to make more friends with females than males, and it's just friends. Like typically, what that usually means when you have a lot of female friends, it turns to something it's not. It's really not. It's just female friends. I'm more drawn to females as friends versus more guys as friends, and it's just because I relate better with them because I'm an empath, so I understand emotions more. So maybe that's why I'm so more likely to have more female friends because I think more of a female sense of way, because you guys are more in tune with your emotions than us fellas because we're too scared to say that our feelings are hurt or something, without one of us calling each other a wuss or all the other derogatory terms I can come up with here in about 5 minutes for you, and it didn't make sense. But it's so interesting though. Then when I dug into a little bit of human design and found out that I'm man generated, which explained why I have so many different side projects I do because I do this, I got invited to a couple
I'm a man
panels.
generator too.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm doing this, the panels. I'm considering doing a new concept of like instead of writing a book, I'm going to do a pod series of like the story of Pete. Like my book would be instead of writing the book, I'm going to do it in a version of a podcast because I'm a podcaster, not a writer type thing. So I tell everybody because like when I type things, it doesn't turn out well for me. So I leave voice notes for people, so it's so much easier. I'm like I'm a podcaster, damn it, not a writer. So like I thought about this and somebody else had mentioned it. He said you should call it Pete versus yourself, and I'm like. That's a great idea. What if I did an idea of a sub-series where I did like a version of a audio book without the paper book being there, and told my story little by little and reflected on it as I go kind of thing. So it's something that's in the
I
working
love that
project. So,
concept. I think that would be very popular. Audiobooks are so
hmm
popular these days as opposed to written books.
yeah.
We've really gotten into a space where, headphones on.
Yeah,
It's
because we're always on the
easy to
go though.
listen.
Yeah, we're always on the go, and things like that too. So I'm thinking like, the book would be kind of cool to have it eventually just to have it in my collection because I get a lot of books from a lot of authors. And Shannon sent me a copy of her book and had it signed it for me and everything. So I have like stuff like that people sign for me and things like that. I think it's really cool. So I could say, like I had an Amazon bestseller on the show. She sent me a copy of her book as well. And she did one where she interviewed like 100 people with DID. And that was fascinating too because you're digging into like the really interesting topic that not a lot of people know about. So, but yeah, the man generator is there, man. I have a school committee. I have this. I have, all these other people that want to do podcasts. Maybe it's like, well, Pete, you want to do a podcast together? I'm like, damn, I don't have enough time in the day, guys. Like, damn, like, okay, sure, why not? And like, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do them all because I'm like, well, if we do weekly drops, I could do I can record all these episodes in one day and then we'll just send them out and be done with it. You know what I mean? And I told Michelle before this, at this point, I have 7 total interviews, including her today. And she was like, wow, that's a lot. I'm like, but I love it. Like, it's like, it's not even work to me. It's not even work. These conversations are so much fun. I get to meet interesting people every day. I was also telling Michelle, I interviewed somebody, a senior editor for Wolf Blitzer for CNN for 7 years. He was so cool to talk to as well, and it's been great. Ever since I started podcasting, I've had more people on this show with more fame than I have, but they're so cool though. That was the thing. Like, they're so nice. They're so relatable. None of these things you hear about a lot of people that you meet, like they tell you don't meet your heroes. I think it's how you meet your heroes is really what the concept is. Don't be an asshole when you come meet them, because then they're going to be an asshole in return. You know what I mean? And they're going to match energy with you, and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody started coming up to you acting crazy. Michelle's not going to be nice about it. She'll be like, get the hell away from me, you weirdo,
No, someone said to me, podcasting is networking gold. And I thought, oh, that's really true,
Master
because you do
networker.
meet great people, but you meet great people and it's
Yeah.
a lot of fun. And it's I think one of the best ways to get one's voice out in the world right now.
I agree. And because you're everywhere. You can be on radios. You can be in car radios. You can be in people's phones. Everybody's always on the constant go with nobody wants to wait anything. Why do you think fast food takes off so fast? Because it's everything. I want it now. I want it now society. Why do you think McDonald's is so big still? Because they're meeting that demand of I want it now. So, same thing with podcasters.
Well, and that's why I made my app the way I did. I really wanted my app to be able to deliver these hypnosis recordings in just a few minutes. I'm like, people can wait 5 minutes. People can wait 5 minutes. That's okay. But, none of this waiting until tomorrow thing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't live in that kind of world.
Forget business days. Michelle's like, I ain't got time for no business days. Forget this crap. Yeah, I'll get you.
No.
But think about it though.
We got to help people.
And then you can pause and you can come back to it. It's a great thing. You can stop it. Okay, well, I don't have time to finish it here and come back to it. And then it's that anticipation. Oh man, I want to go back and finish this episode. Like we did one with me and another person did one about narcissists. And narcissism and the whole thing of that whole category we talked about our past and things. And people were reaching out to me going, damn, dude, I had to stop halfway through because this was hitting so hard home. And that's good. That's what you want to hear. Just like you said, I listened to one of these episodes. I get emails like that all the time now. This year, I've been getting a lot of them. Oh, hey, listen, Pete, I listened to this episode you did with so-and-so. And I'm just like, okay. I've had somebody come on here who's more famous than most people that I've met in my day go, hey, listen, Pete, I've been listening to your stuff. I really like it. I'm like, oh, okay. It's that shock value that people are listening to, and then what is it earlier? Apparently last year, about 6 months into the show, somebody had actually mentioned me on a podcast for the first time. Michelle almost fell over on the floor. It's like, what? She goes, hey, have you met Pete versus Anxiety? And it turned out to be a friend of mine. The second interview I've ever done as a guest on somebody's show was with a woman named Melissa Hepner. She does Emotionally Unavailable. And she's like, oh, yeah, I love Pete. She's like, yeah, I was on his show. And the other girl was like, yeah, I was on his show. Now she has she's ranked #1 in Spotify. She runs a podcast called Mentally a Badass. Scene over there, she was talking about me. I was laughing hysterically. I was like, they're talking about me over here, man. Okay.
That's awesome.
So it's so cool though, and it's great. So what plans do you guys have for Meet Mystic? Do you guys have any plans after this series of episodes? Are you guys planning things at a time, or are you just kind of getting together and brainstorming?
We might repeat this series. It's been very popular. And so one discussion we're having is, do we do another run through it? Because there's always more people to talk to.
Yeah.
And then there's other topics that we want to explore next year.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about hypnosis and hypnotherapy and just what a fantastic solution it can be for so many people, whether you're trying to deal with anxiety or up your business game or get a new job or, because it's just super powerful that way. And Cynthia is writing a book about house clearing and getting bad juju out of houses, especially when they're on the market and selling and that kind of a thing. She's also a realtor.
Makes sense.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what we're talking about next year. Next year will be next year, but we will find fun things to talk about. And we're always anxious to hear from our listeners and know more about what they want to hear.
Listen, if you need somebody in customer service, let me know. I can tell you all some real stories about that. I got stories. I did a podcast before this one. I did the first season was just nothing but stories of things I dealt with. And people were just so amazed by the things I told them. Like, oh, these are all real? I'm like, these are all real things that happen. Like one of them was this girl that was having a bad drug trip. She basically disappeared disappears, reappears. Tries to convince my boss that there's an airplane that's going to land in the grocery store parking lot across the way from where we're at. It's like, I'm like, my boss is like, yeah, she's trying to
People
convince me
tripping,
of
man.
it. I was like, what? Well, she was acting paranoid the whole night before, and then she just disappeared all of a sudden. Couldn't find her anywhere. I was like, dude, where's this place? She vanishes completely. All her stuff is still there. So 3 or 4 hours later, they find her walking from behind where an IHOP that's next door to us, because we're really close to one. So she was coming from there, completely normal. Mind you, she looks at me. I look at her. I go, hey, what's up? She's like, what's up? And that's all we said to each other. And my boss is like, hey, I need to talk to you fast. And my boss came back to tell me that she was like, yeah, she's trying to convince me to go follow the birds to the parking lot across the way to go find this plane because somebody's landing the plane. I'm like, oh yeah, it sounds interesting. You're gonna go follow the birds? Come on, boss, go follow.
Wow. That's a trip.
I'm just like, it's crazy though too. But another thing during that star chart reading though, I found is that people come to me and tell me things I've never told people before, which is funny because that conversation came up again. And I was like, yeah, it was all in my star chart. It's all in that episode. People watch it. You'll see that Carmen mentions that. And I said, that's weird because people come and tell me that stuff. And they say, I've never told anybody this. I don't know why I'm telling you. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I guess I'm just easy to talk to, man. Why not? Sure. I'll be your shrink. Come on, talk to me. Let's hear about it. A lot of people, like, they come see me just to talk to me all the time. I know one woman told me that the other day. She's like, oh, you're such a delight to be around. She's like, I come to see you all the time. I literally come all the way 2 towns over to come see you because I don't want to go to these other ones. I don't like these other people. I said, oh, well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And she said, yeah, you interacted with, I guess I knew somebody else that's related to her. And she was like, yeah, he comes all the time and said, you're always nice to him and everything else like that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't see why people can't be nice to people. I just don't get it. Maybe I missed something here and why we have to be nasty to each other.
No, I think in some ways the United States is kind of, I don't want to get too political, but we kind of lost the plot. Part of the plot is standing up and supporting one another and listening to each other and figuring it out. And we've gotten pretty polarized about things and it's not doing anybody any good.
Yeah.
So
Then you have to add in social media it could be your friend, it could be your enemy, it depends, because like the things that people are posting out there, and just the wild rhetoric some of these guys come up with, and it's just like, oh God, help us all. Because
well, I mean, I'm trying to use AI for good,
mhm,
right? But there are plenty of people who are trying to use AI for bad. And my dear father was nearly spoofed by somebody who had created a voice mimic of my niece saying that,
wow.
I'm in jail and pay my bail and this kind of a thing. And, my dad's an older guy. Like, for a while, he went along with it. Fortunately, my dad is a previous attorney, and he was like, they're asking for bail on a Saturday? They don't bail people out on Saturdays. This doesn't seem real. And so everything got turned around and no money was lost and the rest of it. But, the scams are out there.
Do,
And
do you think that's
so we
why
got to,
people are afraid of AI though? Because all these people are scamming people. I know there's the one I remember that when you said that about your dad, I thought about this when I was listening to a podcast where the girl gets spoofed by somebody that said they were Keanu Reeves, and it doesn't even sound like him. Like it sounds like him, but it's like you could tell it's not really him because Keanu don't talk like that. It's like he has like a robotic way of speaking. It's like, but she was an older woman too, though. She thought it was like, hey, Keanu Reeves is calling me asking me for money. I'm like, don't you think that would have been the first red flag? Is Keanu Reeves, a famous movie star, guy's calling
who
asking
have
you money?
money, presumably? Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, it just makes me laugh
It,
at the same time
it,
it's sad.
it does fall into sort of the category of we believe what we want to believe. And so you have to kind of think about things, because it's pretty easy to get into the, I'm your granddaughter and
Yeah.
I need help. Oh my God, I want to help my granddaughter, right?
Yeah, I get that.
So you have to, I think that's part of it. I think that's part of the reason why people are afraid of AI is that there's a lot of examples of AI being used for bad right now.
Yeah,
But I think the biggest part of it really is just fear of the unknown,
yeah, true.
fear of the unknown. What's going to happen with this? Will it take my job?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So,
Um, what will it do? We don't know. There's a lot of forecasting and prophesying about what all's going to happen, and at the end of the day,
yeah.
it's unknown.
Do you foresee therapy becoming AI based? Like, more people using it to talk to people, but, they gather information just like you did, but that way they can reach more people on a broader scale. Do you kind of see it going that way?
I mean, I think there'll be other companies, other people who create similar solutions to what I have out there. I don't live under any rock to
Yeah,
think that that won't happen. I think that there will be people, there are already millions, thousands or millions of people who are sort of using AI as a therapist. The thing is that you got to remember that this is a therapist who doesn't experience fear.
yeah,
who doesn't experience real life,
Hmm.
who doesn't really who talks a good story, but doesn't have any depth the way a human does.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
there's a
No,
little
I
bit of
get
a
you.
place for that, but we I think we need to sort of provide the structures and the support for people to be able to talk to humans,
Yeah.
because humans are the ones with true empathy, who have real stories, who have been through something similar, who experience fear. And that's who I think people really want to talk to. People are looking for connection and relationship, and AI kind of fakes that a little bit in
Yeah.
some contexts, but it's not the same thing as,
Yeah. Real
you
human
know,
connection.
sharing
An actual
sharing a
person.
tea
Yeah.
with your best friend or that kind of thing.
Yeah, true. Very true. Yeah, I think I think you remember that story with the Chat GPT where they're in trouble now because it was telling a kid to commit suicide basically, and all that kind of thing. And it's just it's sad that people are just, and then it's TikTok and it's all these social media trends of, oh well, Chat GPT is my therapist. For the love of God, please stop saying that. I don't hear it much anymore. Thank God, people stop saying it. It is not your therapist. They are not qualified for that. AI is great for certain things, but for the love of God, please stop using it as your therapist. It doesn't understand what you're telling it. It can tell you do things to a certain extent, but other than that, for the love of God, stop using
It's
it.
real good at helping me, like, how do I find the button on this that does that? It's
Yeah,
real good at that. It's been helpful at, like, how do I stop the squeak in my shoes and the condensation on my windows? It's pretty good at that.
yeah.
But would I entrust it with my biggest, deepest feelings or my sincerest, most heartfelt problems?
No,
No.
God, no, I wouldn't. I couldn't tell it. I'd scare ChatGPT if I told it half the thoughts that go through my head sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be like, oh, never mind, Pete, you need to go find a It'd literally be saying, go find a therapist immediately. Don't talk to me. Hey, Alexa, Pete, don't even. It's like, no, I don't think so. Fool. Then you get that like ghetto Alexa voice coming out. Oh, hell no. Don't talk to me about nothing.
That's funny.
So, Michelle, we're at the part of the show where I ask everybody two questions. I know you've listened to the Meta one, so you probably know this question's coming. Hold on a second. Hey, Alexa, off. Alexa responded to me. So the question to you is that if your mental health had a song, what would you say that song would be?
The
Everybody loves
song
this
that I try
question.
and play in my head now, and it's not always been my song, but it's the song that I try and focus on is "Walking on Sunshine."
Yep, that's a good one. Okay.
And I think I have a sunny personality,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to I like
You
to
have
be in
amazing energy, by the way. I've been getting into energy reading ever since last year, and I've started exploring the avenues of energy and stuff like that too. And I've been working on reading people's energy, and it's been amazing ever since you've been here. You're real bubbly,
Thank
really
you,
friendly, all
thank
that kind of
you.
stuff. The minute we said hello to each other, I can tell you right now, I have this superpower that it's like within the first 5 minutes, I'll know if this conversation is going to hell in a handbasket or not. Only 4 times have I ever pinpointed that right away that it was bad and it was right. Other than that, they've all been great conversations.
That's good. You're learning to have faith in your intuition, and
Yes,
I think that's
definitely.
a core skill that many of us are trained out of.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting though because like I know like when I don't like people either, I'm learning that one too. I'm learning to read emotions on people, which I've always been really good about reading people. A lot of times you can tell they're upset based on the body language they give off, or like some of them are really good at hiding. And one of my coworkers who used to work for me, she was trying to hide it, and she knew she could start smiling at me every time I say something. I knew I was hitting a point. It's kind of like what is it? Those street magicians, ones that do the hypnotherapy in the street. You know what I mean? Like they're looking. No, the mentalists. There you go. The mentalist guys. They're always throwing things out and they're looking for you to react to something. It's almost similar to that kind of thing. So I've kind of looked into some of that stuff, like those different traits of things you can like read on things. But you can notice like when people do certain mannerisms, you can tell if you hit something because she'll crack a smile because she always has a straight face. So she just cracks a smile and she knows I hit something. And I was like, okay. So then I start exploring down the avenue like a mentalist with it. So I go down it a little further and, then she starts to that blockade because she knows I'm getting too close and I stop. I don't push because I'm like, all right, we got somewhere. And then I go from there and I start building off of there, and it's always fun though because it was interesting because when I started exploring that avenue, guess what happened? Energy healers, energy healer, energy. It just kept showing up, and I had an interesting interaction with one of them where she was analyzing me. And I was like, no, let's talk about no, let's not talk about some of those people. Let's talk about you. Because at that point, I wasn't ready to talk about myself. Now I find with my mental health, it's a lot easier to talk about my situation, and I did the Friends podcast the other day, last Saturday. I told her some horrifying things that she didn't even know I was dealing with, and it felt great to tell her. And the look on her face, I think I scared her hair white. She was not sure what to say because she was like, "Wow, I didn't know." And then that question about how you handle your anxiety thing came out too. And I was like, this is what I do, and it was great. All of them were fun questions. And the anime character, when I literally jumped out of the seat for, I was like, "Oh, I got this one for you." It was two actually. So it was Batty from Ferngully, and then it was the Inside Out 2 character, the one that represents anxiety, which was a great movie if you think about it. For anybody that big mental health advocates, if you've never seen that movie, watch it because it dictates, each character dictates his emotions so well. It's so great how much effort they put into doing it. And hats off to them because I love it. It's a great representation of what
It's
people's.
a great
I thought it
movie.
was
It's
great.
an absolutely it was one of my favorite movies last year. The Inside Out 1 was great, Inside Out 2 was
They
great
both were
too.
great. I think the way they portrayed every feeling and emotion you have is great, and I think it's great for the kids to see so they understand what these emotions would look like. If you gave it a character of a person, because I think emotional regulation in children should be happening more often. So like when Shannon Curtis came out and we were talking about, she's coming back though because she's had that book series though, but that's her goal is to emotionally regulate the children. Help them better understand what these things look like and things like that, and I thought it was great, and I love those movies. And the second one came out, I was like, oh yeah, I got to see this one. And then I saw it and I was like, dude, that's awesome because that's 100% it's like that whole constant state of worrying. Oh God, just back and forth is what the dialogue in your head is happening. Now, if you were to tell most people that, people just look at you like you obviously lost your mind someplace. Like, what do you mean? And you can tell the people that understand or have dealt with something that haven't versus the people that haven't. And it's not to put them out there and ostracize them. It's just like, what people you're going to relate to if you have a problem, to come to them and tell them you're having an issue because they start asking you questions. They'll know like, hey, are you okay? Something wrong? Like people know, that's how people know. And you're more likely to answer them and be honest with them versus somebody else, and that's why when I end the show, we say, don't ask your day, ask your mental health is because think about it. If I ask you how you're doing, you're given that avenue to say, no, I'm good. That's it. Problem solved, question's over. But are you really good? No, because you're not. We know you're not good because based on the reason I'm asking you that is because I know something's not right, and things like that too, and then you start to learn what to look for when people are in some kind of thing you ask them. A lot of people feel relieved when you get to that point. Then they're like, and they'll start telling you things. And just be prepared for what they tell you, though. That's the other thing I can warn you about. Just be ready. Because I've had 4 people come to me before, random people I don't even know, that someone had mentioned my name, said, hey, go talk to Pete, that they were all talking about committing suicide, okay? So, like, in those moments,
Shit.
I didn't freak out. I just literally asked them and say, hey, so talk to me. What happened? I investigated the situation. I got them talking to me. And afterwards, most of them are like, hey, it's okay. If I felt like it's something I couldn't handle, you better believe 98 was the same thing. I'm like, listen, I insisted. Like, hey, listen, you need to call 98. This is something outside of my reach. You need somebody that is trained to handle these situations. I'm here to still listen to you, but I highly suggest and I want you to call them because I need you to call them. I am not an expert. I am just here to listen for you. I'll listen to you all day, every day. I'll respond to you all day, every day, but I'm going to keep insisting that you call these people because I'm not trained for these things. Please understand that I'm willing to listen to you, but I'm not the person that you need to be talking to this about totally. Like, I'll listen to you, but you need to call them. And it's great though. But then I met Lisa Sugarman, who does helphub.org, which is a great resource as well. So I tell them, hey, go check out that if you're looking, because, some people you run into have cultural differences that don't agree with the way that most, therapy sessions work. And she went through all, Lisa spent all this time to organize all that stuff for you, and things like that too. So, all right. With that being said, before we start wrapping up, Michelle, I'm going to ask you one last question, and I'm pretty sure you already know this one too is coming. If you could break the stigma about mental health, anything that you hear on a daily basis that you just want people to stop believing, what would you say that would be?
The biggest thing I think that people need is hope. People need hope, and people need to recognize that tomorrow does not have to be awful. Today might be awful, but tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
does not have to be
I
awful.
agree.
And the game sometimes is to just keep going. How do you sort of just keep putting one foot in front of the other and recognize that change is inevitable and that change can go in the right direction? It might go in the wrong direction, but it can absolutely go in the right direction. And how do you sort of just keep going, keep focused on getting through the day, getting into tomorrow, and recognize that the world can change. And as the world changes, you will change, and that it doesn't have to be misery forever.
Exactly. I love it, Michelle. Thank you so much. Before we end off, do you want to go ahead and plug your website and wherever you can hear your podcast and what regulator
Yeah,
you drop it?
absolutely. So my name is Michelle Walters. You can find my website at michellewalters.net, MiChellewalters.net. My special app is called MakeMyHypno.com, MakeMyHypno.com. And Pete, I have a special link to pass on to your listeners for a discount if they want to.
Sounds awesome. I'll definitely put it down
Give it
there.
a shot. My website has all the information about my books, my podcast. My podcast is called Mind Power Meets Mystic. You'll find it on my YouTube channel and also on all major podcast players. And I want to say thank you to you, Pete. It's been so fun talking to you today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you.
What you're doing is noble, and I'm excited that I get to be one little piece of it.
All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate it. Guys, and with that being said, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. You know where to find me. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety on X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify all the way down to iHeartRadio. And as I always say, it costs nothing absolutely to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete vs. Anxiety signing off saying, don't ask how your day is. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?
So if I ever do fall, don't break my neck. It's a sign of respect, that's a knife for death. But now go die for the price of a check. I got my integrity and my word.